Well, hello again, everybody. I'm Deb Sofield. You're listening to my weekly show called Encouragement for Your Life. Many of you know I'm a national speaker, trainer, and as a coach, I help people find their voice and learn to use it. I'm also a conference speaker on the topics of public speaking, presentation skills, how to deal with the media, and crisis communication. Here's my offer. If your organization is having a conference and you need a keynote speaker, I would love to be a part. And you can find me at debsofield.com. Many of you know I've got a number of books on the market. Just go to Amazon, type in my name, Deb Sofield, and all my books will appear. Okay, so today's theme is a little different from what I normally talk about because, sometimes life kicks in. And my theme for today is this: our friend, don't give up unless you should. Yeah, sometimes you need to close the door so you can open another one. Stay with me. I'm Deb Sofield. This is Encouragement for Your Life. Let's get started with today's show. So some listening today are going to be like, but last week you told us never to give up. And friend, I agree. Sometimes you shouldn't. You got to push through. But then there comes a point when, you know what? Sometimes you need to. Listen, if you're like me, you heard the phrase often repeated by our parents that we should never, never, never give up, quoting the great Winston Churchill. Well, although that sounds nice and good and fine, the reality is, sometimes you might need to give up and find something else. Do something else or be something else, especially when the direction you're going is going nowhere. And the damage you're doing, my friend, it'll last a lifetime if you don't stop and redirect. So, not to be disrespectful to my elders, but let me rephrase that quote to say, don't give up unless you should. Why? Because sometimes the path you're on is the wrong one. And the only thing to do is walk it back and start over. If Robert Frost was right, and he probably was, that two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and he took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Friend, why are you on the main road going in the wrong direction? I know, I get it. You're probably thinking, I don't know what to believe, Deb, but trust me on this one. I know I spend week after week encouraging you to go and do and be all that you can be. Friend, I want you to live your best life ever. And I believe that to my very core, that you can be amazed at life or you can have an amazing life. That choice is yours. But I'm well aware that sometimes in life, you might need to give up and go in another direction so you will find success, the satisfaction, and the security that you need to find for you and your family. Friend, if you're on the wrong path or if you've made mistakes, great or small, that are doing damage, or if you are about to do something thoughtless because you know you're headed in the wrong direction, hear me as your friend and coach, you've got to stop now. There's no shame in changing your mind, reviewing your options, or simply saying that enough is enough and walk away. You have choices in life. You must make the right one. The wrong path is always the wrong path, and it doesn't change. The only thing that changes is you, and many times that's not good. Listen, I know it's hard to convince people that sometimes the best thing to do is to go against the conventional wisdom of don't give up. Because if it's not right for you, or it may not be right for you at this time, and that's when you need to forge a new path that will provide other options. So I can remember as clear as day one of my favorite campaign stories of what were we thinking? I was on the campaign with a friend, and one night we decided to go out and put up his large 4x8 campaign signs. Well, we were humming along with our auger, digging great holes and putting our signs in the ground with the greatest of ease until we found the most perfect spot at a fork in the road. So out we jumped, pulled out the equipment to the curb, and started to drill until we hit rock. Now, I'm thinking we just need to go on down the road and find another great spot. But my candidate was thinking that we just needed to lean harder on the auger and drill through the rock. I can remember saying to him, this probably isn't going to work, to which he replied, Deb, you need to be tougher and keep working, because as he would always say to me, we've got this, Deb. You know, guys always say stuff like that. Well, I couldn't see the wisdom of trying to crush rock for a campaign sign, and my friend didn't see the wisdom of backing off. Until we broke the auger drill and had to call it quits for the night. As we were driving back to campaign headquarters, it was pretty quiet in the truck. And the reason we had to give up working early in the evening is because he lived by the phrase that you don't give up. And I live by the phrase, you don't give up unless you should. All right, if you're like me, you grew up hearing the phrase, winners never quit, quitters never win. That's what they told us on the basketball court. But in business and life, sometimes, not always, but occasionally quitting is the best thing you can do if it interferes with your life, your goals, your family, and your friends. Now listen, by nature, I'm not a quitter. It's just not in me. And I'll say, as I've gotten older and I've pushed through things I probably should have left well enough alone, I've suffered the physical consequences. Believe it or not, I'm not as young as I used to be. And pushing myself from conference to conference, airport to airport, hotel to hotel, because I love what I do and I love helping people. But if in the end I lose my voice, I lose my health, well, I lose me. Then what do I have left? Not much. And that's when I think that maybe, just maybe, I should have given some of it up so I can keep the rest of it. As a society, we really push that no one should ever give up, and sometimes that should be the case. But I also think that sometimes that advice is simply wrong advice, especially when someone is headed in the wrong direction. I was reading an article by Marquita Harold, and she was talking about those who will tell you to never ever give up on a goal, no matter what, because you just never know what tomorrow will bring. The more you've shared your goal with the world, the louder that cry will be, because after all, you shared it in the first place, so others could cheer you on and keep you from quitting. But the problem is that despite what all the success stories proclaim, there's always a chance that, regardless of your good intentions and how hard you work, you could pursue a path for your entire life without ever reaching the dream you desire, or worse yet, the wrong dream for your life. Now, you may say, well, Deb, if they're headed in the wrong direction, of course they know to give up and turn around. Whew, I wish that were true. But due to the pressure of others, the pressure you put on yourself, the pressure of family responsibilities and social networks that scrutinize every move, as you well know, it makes it hard to give up sometimes. It's so much easier to go with the flow and keep your head down so no one notices you. But is that really a way to live? I don't think so. Sometimes I think your best bet is to quit and save yourself. Now, listen, when I say that some of you need to quit and save yourself or give up, you know what I'm talking about. You're married and you're having an affair. You need to quit. You claim to be honest and you steal time, money, and supplies from your boss. You need to quit. You criticize others for not living up to your standard. And yet, in your spare time, you're watching things online and going to places you would never step foot in the light of day. Friend, you need to quit because you're going in the wrong direction. If these are private habits, then you need to quit now. Because one day it will all come crashing down. And then your reputation, your family, your job will suffer because you didn't do the right thing and quit the things you know you should have. Now listen, I'm not here to judge you. I'm just asking that you stop doing the wrong things in your life. Friend, open the newspaper any day or online. Read about people who we all thought were on their way to success or stardom or working so hard. And then we found out after they were arrested that they were someone else. When your life or your habits have landed you in such a terrible state of affairs, it is time to give up and start over. And that's the other part of my message today. Just because you gave up on some things doesn't mean you can't start over on new things. You can develop new healthy habits. You can create a plan or path for the next part of your life. Friends, you can do whatever you put your mind to as long as it's good for you and your family. It takes courage to admit you're ready for a start over, a do-over, or a retake. But that courage will come when you make the right decision, as difficult as it may be, to do the right thing. Now listen, I don't believe you ever need to make a habit out of quitting and starting over. If that's the case, we've got other issues to deal with. But for some listening today, I'd like you to think about making the decision as you forge a new path. And I will simply remind you, I never want you to give up unless you should. I know that's a bit of a different message, but so many times as I'm working with young people or folks in the business world and I meet them online and I can just tell that things probably aren't in place as they should, sometimes you just want to say, you need to stop and redirect. I mentioned this Marquita Harold. She has a paragraph that I want to share with you before I close out this section. She says, never forget it's about the journey. When pursuing a goal, we often focus our energies on the rewards that will come once we achieve the big dream, when in fact the real reward are what we learn and who we become on the journey to achieve our dreams and goals. The question to consider is whether you're happy doing what you're doing while on this journey, or are you suffering through it all for the sake of the brass ring at the end? If it's the latter, you ought to seriously consider the quality of life you are living today. So, when is it time to give up? The answer is simple. When you have an alternative path that will give you more growth, more passion, and more fulfillment for the life you dreamed of living. Edited that a little bit, but I thought it was a really great quote to kind of end this section of the show. I'm Deb Sofield. You're listening to Encouragement for Your Life. Stay tuned. I'll be right back after the break.
Hi folks, Deb Sofield here. If you're in a leadership position, you know how important it is to be able to present well, whether it's a shareholders address or a national sales meeting. If you've ever needed help in crafting the right message, or if your staff or sales team needs a refresher course on public speaking skills for today's market, or if someone you know is interviewing for a job or college or medical or law school, call me. In addition to being a national speaker, I'm an executive speech and corporate presentations coach, and I can help you craft a message for success. Don't waste your time and money on those who claim to be a speech coach, but no one would ever pay to hear them speak. Please hear it from me. Hire someone who does this for a living and does it well and is successful. You can't afford not to, because it's about you being your very best. Call me. I'd like to be on your team. I'd like to be your coach. Contact me through my website, debsofield.com.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for staying with me. You're probably still hearing a little bit of a frog in my throat. I think I mentioned last week that I'd come down with COVID, which is terrible, by the way, but I am doing much better, and thanks for the good wishes. A lot of you wrote to say that you were praying for me, and I really appreciate that. So I want to continue with my theme today, which is don't give up unless you should. And I know it kind of goes against a lot of things that I teach, but at some point I had to be very honest with myself, as I will be with you, my friends. Sometimes if you're going down the wrong path, you really do need to stop and turn around. There's no need to continue to make mistakes that are fixable. And so I came across an interesting article by Laura Morris, who says, there are 8 times when giving up is a good thing. Now, I've edited this, but I wanted to share this with you in our time together. The headline's this: how many times have you been told never give up, or no one likes a quitter? How many times have you heard inspirational stories that go something like this? So-and-so faced countless setbacks, but she kept fighting all along. Mr. A and Mr. B had their troubles, but they never gave up on their relationship, even when life got rough. I assume your answer is along the lines of more times than I can possibly remember. See, our culture romanticizes perseverance, and for a good reason. Perseverance is a great quality. A lot of amazing things in our world would have never had happened or been invented. A lot of great people would have never found success if they hadn't kept getting up every time they got knocked down. But, sometimes giving up is exactly what we should do. I know we're taught to persevere no matter what. But sometimes that perseverance, that unwillingness or inability to let go, will keep some who are listening today from moving forward, from finding happiness, from adapting to the curveball that life throws our way. We'll all face many different life situations that demand that we choose to keep going or give up. Professional goals, artistic dreams, relations with friends and family, maybe the desire to have kids, and the list goes on and on. Sometimes continuing to strive is the right decision. But other times, and again, this is what's best for who you are and where you are, it won't be. Giving up doesn't always make you a bad person or a failure or a deserter or whatever bad thing you've been telling yourself. Sometimes giving up means that you are someone who is mature enough to know when to cut the losses and move on. Someone who has the bravery to protect their mental health. Someone who is willing to take the risk of changing course. Now, only you can ask yourself the tough questions about your current life path. But for starters, here's a few things that I want you to think about that it is probably okay to quit. All right, first one. When you know in your heart it's not going to work out. Now, as a coach, I see this a lot with young people who are dating. The painful truth is sometimes dreams don't come true. Some relationships will never be healthy. Some people will never love you the way you'd like to be loved, and that's life. So you have to ask yourself honestly and seriously, is this a goal that can possibly work out? All right, that's a tough question, and it will require a thoughtful answer. The next one is when you don't want to do something for someone anymore. You know, we can come to be so defined by our goals that it's easy to take them for granted. We simply think, well, of course I want that because I've always wanted that. I get this a lot with my kids who are trying to go to med school. Dad's a doctor, granddad's a doctor. I'm supposed to be a doctor. But then they take time to think about it and they're like, yeah, it's not really what I want, but... And again, those are tough decisions that families usually make together. Is it a dream that still speaks to you in a deep way, or are you just going through the motions? Only really you can decide. The next point is sometimes it's okay to change course. If pursuing the goal that you thought you wanted is really making you unhappy. The fact is, dreams are wonderful, but we shouldn't sacrifice our day-to-day happiness for the hope of happiness in a distant future. Are you happy as you pursue your goal? If, for example, you're a fledgling artist trying to make a living, think about whether the process itself, the work you're doing in pursuit of your goal, is fulfilling in its own right. If it is, more power to you, keep going. If it's not, you might need to think about what you actually want. There's a lot of cliches out there that say, it's about the journey, not the destination. But friends, those are cliches for a reason. If your journey is making you miserable, the destination isn't going to be worth it when you finally get there. Probably number 4 is the one I think we all struggle with in this article. It says, when the only reason you haven't quit is because you are worried about what other people think. When you find yourself shying away from the idea of quitting, what is it that scares you? Are you chiefly worried that you'll let other people down? Because friend, if that's the case, you can't sacrifice your life in order to make other people happy. Let other people take care of themselves, and you take care of yourself. Number 5, again, when I'm dealing with folks who are, maybe beginning relationships or trying to meet somebody, the only reason you stick to it because you don't want to live with or without that person. When you've been striving for a dream or working to sustain a relationship for years and years, it is easy to lose sight of who you are outside of that relationship. The idea of giving up on something you've held close can really be frightening. After all, who are you without that person? Or if you're not pursuing that ambition. But friend, you got to remind yourself that you, my listener, are a full person no matter what decision you make. If you give up, yes, you'll probably feel the loss at first. But eventually, and it may take time, new desires and new relationships will come and fill the empty space. The next point is when pursuing the path is preventing you from going down the road that would make you happier. The line is, life is strange, twisty thing full of possibilities and change. Friend, if sticking to your guns is keeping you from being open to all the possibilities that life has to offer, maybe it's time to unstick. Even if your original goal is a good goal, it's not the only one out there for you. If you can envision happiness by going a different direction, then seriously think about making a change. I like the next point. When your inability to accomplish your goal is making you dislike yourself. We've all met people like this. Following a long-term dream isn't going to be hearts and roses all the time, but it shouldn't shred your sense of self. If trying to accomplish your dream makes you feel like a failure or fills you with shame because you can't quite make it happen, then it may be time to stop. Recognize you're human and you don't have the power to bend the world to your will or change other people. So just think about it. Just make a wise decision to either move on and find something that fulfills you rather than tears you apart and leaving you less than who you really are. And then I like this last point, and it's this one. It's probably okay to give up when thoughts of giving up fill you with relief. It's the very first feeling you have when you contemplate quitting your job or leaving a relationship or giving up on a dream. If that is a profound sense of relief, friends, you might want to consider it. And you should take that response seriously. If after stripping away all the worry and anxiety that comes with any major life change, all you feel is an enormous weight lifted off your shoulders, well, then that's your answer. Go ahead, quit. Sometimes it's the best life decision you can make. I know, a very interesting topic because we always encourage people to push through no matter what. But maybe that's not right for you. There's a quote from Elvis Presley that I love. He says this: when things go wrong, don't go with them. Wow, that makes sense. When things go wrong, don't go with them. Because sometimes, friends, I think sometimes I would encourage you not to give up unless you should. And only you will know that. Nobody can do that for you. I came across another article just quickly before I close out today is why it's okay to give up sometimes. And remember, my message today isn't that you get to give up easily. No, that's always a very thoughtful process. But boy, I would rather you make that tough decision than just keep slogging away with something that will ultimately take the life out of you. This is an article I found on Odyssey Online. It says, growing up, we're taught never to make a commitment we can't keep. Never start something you can't finish. As time goes on, we stress ourselves out by taking on too many things at once, and we're not sure what we could, quote, drop if we feel like we've had enough or we can't juggle our balancing act anymore. The author says, one thing I've learned the hard way time and time again is that sometimes you have to give up in order to allow new things to happen and start over. Let me remind you that giving up doesn't make you weak and it doesn't make you a coward. Giving up for so many means you're strong enough and smart enough to realize you couldn't handle something anymore and you should put your energies elsewhere. It's okay to give up on people who disappoint you over and over. You don't really owe them your time and energy. They're not giving you theirs. Now, I'm somebody who doesn't like to give up. I will admit that, but it's a lesson that I've learned and I'm okay with it now because sometimes you do have to walk away. The article goes on to say it's okay to give up on a dream and reach for a new one. Dreams come and go, and there's nothing wrong with letting go of one to create another. So don't lose your ambition, but don't settle when your heart desires something greater. Then the next one is don't give up on yourself if you don't like the decisions you're making. I know everyone says, don't give up on yourself, things will get better. But honestly, sometimes starting over with yourself is the key to starting over in life. And changing the way you look at things will change the way things in your life will be. So the bottom line is this, friend. Don't be afraid of changing and letting go. You need to learn to give up on things that are toxic in your life. Hold on to things that mean the most to you and will help you grow as a person. There's nothing wrong with giving up on things that you tried your hardest at and really just didn't succeed. Shocking but true, many of us can't be perfect at everything, and we can't please everyone. So don't be afraid to let go if you have to. And I edited that. I just think it's really an important conversation that perhaps we have, that sometimes it is okay to give up. Not that you didn't do it with real foresight and prayer and understanding. But friend, once you're heading in the wrong direction, like I mentioned earlier in the show, when you're on the wrong path, you're on the wrong path. And the only way to get off the wrong path is to stop and make a change. But you do that carefully. This is not for people who just keep flipping off and doing something different. No, you're wise, you're smart, you're thoughtful. And I know you want to keep your word, but I also want you to live the life that you were born to live. And heading in the wrong direction isn't going to take you there. All right, different message today. I fully get it. Come back next week and I'll continue on with you can do anything you want to do, because I do believe that. I just think sometimes it's wise for us to stop and figure out where we're going to make sure we're going in the direction that's best for us and our family and our future. Hey, I've enjoyed our time together. I'm Deb Sofield. You're listening to Encouragement for Your Life. I hope you'll join me next week, same time, same place. Have a good one, everybody.